Yes, thanks for staying with us on the Sports Show. Time to get one of the legends of the SANFL footy in his time. This man played 225 games for the Bays. He played footy at Hawthorn. He coached at the Bays for a while. Absolute star on the wing. You look a bit perplexed when I say that.
You promised not to bring up the coaching.
I should have mentioned the coach. I'll put a line through coaching. Tony Simmons, our special guest. Tony, thanks for coming in, mate.
Okay, guys. How are you?
Mate.
Mate, sometimes we like to reflect back, so let's go back in time a bit. 1973 to the first grand final you played in 1985. There's a long time between drinks. The Bays lost 5 grand finals leading into that. What do you remember about the 1985 lead in to the final before winning it?
Yeah, as a kid I went to a lot of those grand finals and saw us lose and walked out crying and all the rest, and I'd played in the losing one in 82. And it was getting a bit tight where we just thought, are we ever going to get there, even though a lot of us were 20, 21 years of age. But I remember the build-up to it. I think North and us were the better sides at the time, and we had some pretty close goes against them during the year. But I think on the day that year we were just favourites. It was a bit 50-50, but funnily enough, we've all played sport, and you remember driving to Footy Park, and it was a beautiful warm day, and I don't know, a bit of youthful exuberance, I suppose. I thought, well, we're definitely going to win this, and I'm going to play well, and all those sorts of things, and I think that helps a bit, and consequently got over the line.
Good side though. The Bays had a really good side there. If they didn't win one of those two, 85, 86, boy, you know, you wouldn't have won one for.
I think there was 12 or 14 blokes in the side that played AFL or VFL football either before or after that.
Very strong.
And so we did have a very good side. And funnily enough, a lot of us younger blokes, I'm probably talking, you know, the Kernahans and McDermotts, McGuinnesses, Halls, we would sort of come through together, and we really did think that it was a matter of time, but once again, probably because we weren't scarred with some of the losing ones previously.
Mate, you know you're going pretty well in the grand final when you and Ross Gibbs decided to do a drop kick just late in the game.
You lair.
Of course, the drop kick's out of footy now. We don't see it at all, mate. It's a bit like the torp. Will we ever see it again? Who knows? But what leads to being confident enough, just cruising to a victory, to drop a droppy for a goal?
Probably 2 overconfident blokes, probably, I would have thought. And the real story is Ross and I met about 8 weeks before that after a game at Footy Park and had a couple of beers at the Ramsgate on the way home. No fights or anything, just a beer. And for some reason or other, we thought we were a chance, and we got talking about it, and probably wrong looking back, but we said to each other, if we're well up in the last quarter, we'll both kick a drop kick. So I got my opportunity very early in the last quarter, a bit early to really kick it correctly, but I wanted to make sure it went through, but it was a droppy, and of course Gibbsy kicked one in the last 2 minutes of the game, hit Peter Maynard on the chest, who's unfortunately dropped it. And to finish it off, after the celebrations, a couple of hours later on the way back to the dinner, Ross and I dropped into the Ramsgate, which was difficult at the time. There's a lot of people there, and we had another beer together and toasted that. So it's an amazing story, really, but one we dine out on every now and again.
Where did your droppy go?
Well, mine was the goal, Baz.
Okay, you hit the goal with a droppy.
But seriously, I was in the goal square running into an open goal, and if you have a look at the footage, I sort of looked around to see if there's anyone coming. I thought, well, there's not. I can probably grub it through. But I was about 5 metres out. If I'd have been 1 metre out, I would have kicked it better. But it was a droppy, and we laugh about it a lot these days.
Mate, 85, 86 year premiership years. Graham Corns as the coach. Was he any different in the first year to the second year?
I think Graham felt more relieved the second year than he did the first year. I think the first year was just, it was uptight, very uptight. And I think he'd come back, he'd played with a number of us before he went to South Adelaide in 83. And then obviously he was there for 2 years. So he came back to us and was a changed man. 2 years of coaching had probably hardened him up, and he was tough on us. I think the second year, well, I think he probably enjoyed the second year more because the first year the pressure was really on. We were favourites. Second year we weren't favourites. North Adelaide were red-hot favourites. And we were lucky to make it. I think second to last or last minor round game, we were outside of the 5. I think the second to last. I think we won our last two and snuck into third position after looking at a chance to miss out altogether.
I do remember that.
So we sort of come from the clouds a bit. I think probably North weren't all that happy about that. They'd probably say that they were keen to play us again and beat us in a granny, which they obviously did in '87. But I don't think they would have been too pleased to be playing us again in '86. And you know, it was a pretty hard, tough grand final, and I was going to say played in good spirits, but that would be a lie.
Yeah, played in good spirits. Yeah. Did you have it? Did you think? Sorry, I'll rephrase that. Did you have a team at Glenelg that you thought you could always beat? Was there a team out there that you were your bunnies?
We seemed to have a good record against Norwood back in the day, who were always good, always around the mark, of course. But I always felt we could beat Norwood, and that didn't always happen. But I think they kicked us out of the finals. Might have been in '84. I think Peter Carey got suspended for 2 weeks.
That's right.
And I think we lost both our finals, so they had the wood over us there. But I always felt we could beat Norwood. Thought we matched up against them pretty well. And I remember when I first started playing, standing the great Phil Gallagher quite a bit as a young wingman. Just been put on a wing by Graham Campbell, I think, or John Halbert, and standing gags, and I couldn't work out, I couldn't find him all the time, and sort of looked around, he was on the other side of the ground, or at half back on the other side of the ground. I'm thinking, that's not a bad idea. So I sort of learnt quite a bit from standing guys of his ilk.
You would have stood some great wingmen in your time. And some tough wingmen.
Yeah,
very tough.
Stood
wingmen.
Greg Anderson a lot, who I know is associated here. Stood Simon Tregenza quite a bit. David Hutton, you know, Kim Kinnear. You know, there's a lot of good Port wingmen. At Nord, obviously, Wayne Tanner, Duncan Fosdyke, Phil Gallagher. Really good footballers. You always, in those days too, you stood that bloke most of the game. So Darryl Panizza came over, who was a good footballer for Woodville. Sturt had Redbone. I think Michael Graham was still hanging around a bit. Fortunately, he was playing more half forward in those days. But you generally stood the same guy all day, so you could back yourself in a bit and think, well, I'm going to just run this bloke into the ground. If he can stay with me, he can stay with me. But you know, you'd back yourself in to run him into the ground. These days with rotations, you can't do that.
Can't do that.
Which is a bit sad.
Mate,
that's
you
a good point.
Had a year with Hawthorn, mate. You had a chance to get first-hand look at Dipper, Brereton, Dunstall, Johnny Platten. They're the greats of the game, and certainly at Hawthorn. What was unique? Was there something unique about the four of them that made them stand out the way they did?
Well, I think culturally the club was very, very strong and still is. You know, they call themselves a family club, and they were. They were extremely tight bunch of guys. I mean, they're fiercely dedicated. Interestingly, all great blokes. If you look like taking one of their spots, which I did for a few weeks there, they wouldn't talk to you too much because it was fairly costly if you lost your spot. But to be out there, you know, the first night I walked out there and I looked over and I saw Dipper and Dermot and Jason Dunstall and Platts and Chris Mew and Chris Langford and Michael Tuck and Peter Schwab, and you just sort of keep going. That was when it suddenly hit me. It may be quite difficult to get a game here. Probably should have thought about that in November rather than turning up there in January. So that was an error, but it was just a pleasure to be associated with them. Yabby Jeans was the coach at the time, and didn't matter how good a footballer you were, Yabby had your number. And you didn't mess around with him. And he had a habit of he was a wrestling champion, in case you didn't know. He had a habit of getting blokes in a bear hug in the rooms after the game or after training, and you had to see if you could get out. And I remember clearly him and Dipper going for probably 10 minutes non-stop, and it was on. So that was sort of the way it was. But back in those days too, we still had a barbecue in the change rooms Thursday night. So after training, you'd be doing your weights. And seriously, there'd be a bloke standing there looking down at you while you're doing bench press. About 80 kilos, maybe a bit less. And there'd be a bloke eating a sausage on a piece of bread with onions talking to you. And that was the way it was. Everyone was welcome at the club, and I think it worked for them for a long time.
Mate, we could talk for ages. Just quickly before we go, father-son's always tough. Your son Clayton playing at Sacred Heart now. How's he find... You know, he's in the Glenelg area, mate. Is it hard following in Dad's footsteps, or is it hard for you watching him?
I think he enjoyed it more when he was younger. He's 18 now, and he's been playing under 18s this year, and also been playing at Sacred Heart. I think he finds that every now and again it's a bit annoying, probably, because he gets compared to me a bit. He's tall and thin and can run, and that was probably my modus operandi in those days. But he handles himself pretty well. He's pretty dedicated, trains hard, and he's very keen to have a crack. I think at times probably it's a bit annoying for him, to be quite honest, but he's a big boy, he'll handle it.
Anyway, always good to catch up with you. Tony Simon's our special guest. Stay with us, still a bit more to come on the show.